Well, Becky, this meeting of outside advisors just getting underway for the FDA today. And specifically, they are evaluating Pfizer's application for a third shot of its COVID-19 vaccine for people over the age of 16. We're going to hear presentations from the FDA itself. We're going to hear from the CDC. We'll hear from Pfizer. We're also going to hear some presentations from public health folks in the UK and Israel who have some data on how well the vaccines hold up in those settings as well. At the end of the day, we're going to hear discussion from these outside experts on vaccines about all of these considerations, and they will vote somewhere around perhaps 4 o'clock this afternoon on whether to authorize or recommend that the FDA approve this third dose. But really, guys, there is so much bubbling under the surface here. A key question is whether we even need booster shots and for whom. So this is the timeline we're going to see after today and the advisors vote. The FDA will then make its decision. So this is just a recommendation this afternoon. When the FDA decides on the approval, then next week, CDC's advisors will meet on essentially how to recommend these booster shots be used. Should they be just in a certain population like the elderly, as Dr. Gottlieb was indicating earlier? When should they be indicated? 6 to 8 months after the first 2 shots, things like that. And Dr. Gottlieb suggested we might hear discussion of that today, too, based on the data that are presented. So, guys, there's just been a lot of controversy going into this meeting because some of the people who are speaking from the FDA today have already said they don't think we need booster shots. So a lot of people are going to be watching very closely how this turns out.
So they made those decisions with the information that will be presented today from places like Israel and other places where they've done more studying, or they made those decisions independent of that?
Well, they took into account studies that have been available worldwide. We don't know all of the studies that they had or to what day they were updated that they were looking at for this Lancet letter they published earlier this week. We also saw some new data from Moderna just 2 days ago from their phase 3 trial looking a year out. And so that could also add more than they already had to look at in terms of the waning and the protectiveness from the vaccines. So we'll see how they talk about it today and how these outside experts talk about it as well. And of course, we should note this is really, at the end of the day, only focused on the Pfizer booster. It's going to be later for Moderna and even later for Johnson & Johnson, but sort of it's going to give us an idea of how the FDA looks at boosters more broadly.
I mean, I guess, Mac, that would be my biggest concern is if these people have made up their minds before they've seen all the data, especially if some of this data was only available 2 days ago, which is after a lot of these scientists there said they'd already made up their mind. Gottlieb told us that normally what you'd be looking at here is it safe and is it effective? But obviously there's a lot more that's going into this, some maybe public policy issues that are going to be taking precedence over just the pure science on that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who watched the FDA were shocked to see these 2 vaccine regulators come out on Monday saying we don't need booster shots based on the available evidence 4 days before a meeting with the FDA and its outside advisors to evaluate whether we need booster shots. That is just quite unusual. But one also knows that these folks are longtime regulators who can take into account lots of different data. And so we'll see how they think about it. And then really, at the end of the day, literally the end of the day, we'll have a vote, and then the FDA itself will make its decision. And these regulators who wrote the letter in the Lancet are not at the top of the FDA. At the top, it's Janet Woodcock, the acting commissioner, and Peter Marks, who's in charge of the vaccine regulation. So we'll see them make the decision.
Just very quickly, you told us yesterday about the number of people who have gotten these shots anyway. It's a large portion of people who don't necessarily even fit in the older age category. Will it be more difficult to try and get these shots a week from now or whenever the CDC decides if they put restrictions on it than it is right now for people to walk into a CVS or someplace else and get one?
We should say if you're not immunocompromised, it's not recommended you get a booster right now. But yes, if there are more restrictions, then we expect providers would probably follow them.
Thanks, Meg.